A sneak peek at what's coming up next.
A lot of our listeners will probably not agree with this, but because it's kind of a like when it comes to trolling and roasting people, I don't play PC. So what's funny is, like, for instance, with Trump supporters, the other day, this guy was calling me, he called me gay and called me a cuck and all this other stuff. And I said, I'm just curious, do all the Big Mats and Diet Coke make his seminal fluid taste a little more salty? Something like that.
I will say that, like, sometimes people got to check their own thinking before they start accusing people of things. And I'm not saying that like somebody hasn't mistreated them, but to demonize an entire group of people because somebody demonized somebody at one point, why are you only arguing with women? You're in a woman's space. Why are you even commenting? And I responded with, I didn't realize this was a woman's only space. I apologize if it was. And as far as me only commenting to women, I didn't know most of them were women. I didn't go to their profiles. I just read their comment and I responded. And that's it.
I have a controversial one for you. Racists will also use the same arguments to justify why you should be afraid of black people. They'll say, well, black people commit more violent crime. And then I listed off like 40 different reasons why you might be justified for yelling at somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And then talking about how anger is a normal human emotion. Frustration is normal human emotion. And that doesn't mean that like men should be mean and yell at people. What it does mean is that there are plenty of reasons why somebody might be justified in their reason for yelling at somebody, especially when you're talking about like neurodivergent people. There's plenty of reasons why you might get frustrated or yell. And the other part of it that I pointed out is that sometimes people feel like they're being yelled at when they're not.
Right.
Like, what if you feel like someone's yelling at you, but they're not actually directing it at you at all?
Right.
Get ready for peak autism infotainment. Thrilling topics, amazing guests, great laughs, and autism.
On the Spectrum, an autistic podcast.
All right. Welcome to another special episode of On the Spectrum podcast. I'm Steve Norton.
And I'm Nick.
All right. And to stop doing the stupid voice for a minute. Actually, I'm kind of riled up today. Yeah. I'm a little hyper. I know often on the show I complain about social medias and the interwebs and people online and all that. But specifically, I wanted to touch on something today that's on my mind. It has to do with, and you can argue with me about these words later, but misogyny, misandry, and transphobia specifically, because those are the three that I've been seeing a lot. And we can argue over whether misandry exists or not, or whatever. That's not the point. The point is like just, yeah, we'll get into the substance of it in a minute. But so what I've been seeing a lot of, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is I've been seeing a lot of posts lately online, and this is not a new thing. It's just been coming up a lot more in my feed in particular on social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, etc., and X. Let's say let me go over the misogyny one first. I'll see something where somebody will post something and there's a woman in the picture, and then there's a bunch of guys in the comments making stupid comments. For instance, there was one with like these two guys and a girl. They were doing like some sort of cheerleading routine, and the guy had to lift her up, and they were kind of like two guys holding her up, whatever. Yeah. And all the comments were all these guys making like disgusting comments about like them like running a train on her and all the stuff like that. Holy or you'll go on another one, and then like there'll be a girl and people complaining that the girl's not attractive enough, and then you look at like just like ironically you look at the picture and it's like some fat old guy criticizing how this young girl looks, and it's like he's a fat ugly old guy, right? So that type of stuff I find extremely annoying on the misogyny side. It's like all of the over sexualizing these random women you don't know, or like talking about women's looks, or even people have been arguing about The Last of Us. You know that show? It's based on the video game on HBO.
Oh, yeah, the zombie show.
People were complaining about, I think her name's Bella Ramsey or whatever. The girl playing Ellie.
Yeah,
they were saying she's not attractive enough, whatever.
Non-binary.
It's supposed to be a teenage girl, and they're like worried about the attractiveness of this character that's a teenage girl, and like whether like I think she's a pretty good actress, so what does it matter? Anyway, so stuff like that, it's been driving me nuts. So anytime I see people saying that kind of stuff, I've just been trolling them. And then we come on to the other side with the transphobia. I've been seeing posts lately. Like, for instance, there was one I saw the other day, and it was a post about a straight, cis, hetero male dating a trans woman. And a bunch of the comments were calling him gay, or somebody just called him an F word, stuff like that in the comments. So then same thing, I was trolling those people and like just making fun of them, roasting them in the comments. Anybody who was making transphobic comments, I've been roasting people. There's a lot of women too, surprisingly, like on these posts where people posting about trans women, specifically trans women, because it's usually not trans men, it's usually trans women. All the posts that I see, but there's grown ass women in their 40s and 50s making super like transphobic comments. I know you don't like the word phobia anyway, but
yeah, I really
all the transphobic comments. And I'm just like, same thing. I was making fun of. So what I will do, and a lot of our listeners will probably not agree with this, but because it's kind of a, like when it comes to trolling and roasting people, I don't play PC. So what's funny is like, for instance, with Trump supporters, if somebody's arguing with me about Trump and they're saying this delusional, stupid shit about Trump, I will usually make some sort of joke about them whipping out knee pads or, sucking Trump off, or like make jokes about them swallowing gallons of Trump's cum. Right. Like I said something to the other guy, like the other day, this guy was calling me, he called me gay and called me a cuck and all this other stuff. And I said, I'm just curious, do all the Big Mats and Diet Coke make his seminal fluid taste a little more salty? Something like that. Like, so I make very like inappropriate jokes to people. And I'm usually better at it. Insulting this. Okay. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
So for this woman who was talking shit about this trans person, I was congratulating her on her transition. And so some people might not like that type of joke, but the reason I say it is because I know it's going to bother the person because they're transphobic. So me saying that she looks trans is going to upset her, which other people might say, well, that's not cool. It's not PC to joke like that. But I know, like, for instance, if I make a joke about a conservative person being gay, I have no problem with people being gay, but they do. So me insinuating that they are gay or participating in gay activity, that's going to enrage them. So for me, it's more about the trolling and insulting them rather than like trying to be politically correct. The same thing with like this older woman who was making fun of a trans woman and me asking her how much estrogen she has to take each day and stuff like that. Like, so yes, it's maybe crude humor, but that's my way of trolling these people. And then to the third part of it, the misandry part, I've also been seeing a lot of posts on specifically like comedy pages, autism pages, and other spaces that we would normally delve into, just a lot of like really anti-male stuff. And I understand where some of the sentiment comes from because I could probably argue the other side from what is presumably a lot of people who are more feminist from their perspective. And like they have valid points to make and I agree with it, but it's the way that they say certain things that kind of irritates me. And so I was arguing with somebody the other day about they were saying that there was a joke they posted about men yelling at women. And then there were people in the comments. There was this guy saying, well, what if they're justified in their yelling? And then people were responding and saying, well, there's never any justifiable reason to yell at somebody. And then I listed off like 40 different reasons why you might be justified for yelling at somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And then talking about how anger is a normal human emotion. Frustration is a normal human emotion. And that doesn't mean that like men should be mean and yell at people. What it does mean is that there are plenty of reasons why somebody might be justified in their reason for yelling at somebody. And they're saying, well, you shouldn't yell at somebody. If you're frustrated, just yell or whatever. But like, what if, and I gave examples, like what if somebody's manipulating you or emotionally abusing you and you get kind of, over the tipping point and you start yelling. People can be abusive or manipulative towards you without raising their voice. It can be very hurtful. What if you are a parent and somebody essayed your kid? And you yell at that person? Are you now being verbally abusive? Because they were saying that it's always verbal abuse, full stop. And I was like, okay. And they were specifically talking about men yelling at women. They're saying that there's never any a justifiable reason for it. And it's like, there's like 40 different reasons you can think off the top of your head why somebody might yell at somebody that's justified. For them being angry. But I understand the point they were trying to make, which is that like men often express their emotions through anger. And if they yell at a woman, a lot of times, like the joke was something like, oh, calm down, like with your big boy feelings or something like that. But so I understand the sentiment they're making, like, men shouldn't like yell at women. Get it. Like, yeah, men should not yell at women and they should be nicer and not be mean. But I think it's going too far to say that there's never any justifiable reason, especially when you're talking about like neurodivergent people. There's plenty of reasons why you might get frustrated or yell. And the other part of it that I pointed out is that sometimes people feel like they're being yelled at when they're not.
Right.
Like, what if you feel like someone's yelling at you, but they're not actually directing it at you at all?
Right.
And there's plenty of reasons why women yell too. Like, people get frustrated. Anger is a normal human emotion. So I'll step off my soapbox now. And before I continue, before I let you talk, the reason why I connected all these things together is because when I was arguing and trying to defend what these people were saying, like I was defending the guys who were saying that, well, there might be reasons why somebody might yell at somebody that's justified. And I didn't like the absolutist statements that people were making. So then I had a bunch of people attacking me and calling me names because whatever, because I dare defend a guy in the comments. Now, all of a sudden I'm a piece of shit and I probably beat my wife or whatever, all this stuff they're saying. Yeah. I pointed out, like, I'm having the same arguments with people who say shit about women and the same arguments with people who are making fun of trans people or saying nasty things about trans people. You just don't like it when I'm doing it to you because you're making absolutist statements about boys and men. Right. So there you go.
Wow, way to pass it on that note. God, where the fuck to start on that?
I felt like I had to explain fully why I wanted to talk about this. No,
I understand why you wanted to talk about it. So just to kind of cue other people in. So usually me and Steve will pass the topic by each other ahead of time before we start recording, and we'll start talking about it a little bit. And that's kind of where some of this came from too. We started talking about this about 10 minutes before we started recording. So a little bit of this conversation we've already started to have.
People don't care about the why. Like, by me listing reasons why somebody might yell at somebody and it being justified, even if you are yelling at somebody. Yeah. What if that person is, like I said, being abusive? What if they molested your kid? What if they what if you're an autistic person in the middle of having a meltdown? Are you going to say that's the same as a husband verbally abusing his wife just because he's a mean guy?
No.
But they don't care about the why.
No.
These particular people who are engaging in all these conversations, they just want to shit on men for some reason.
I don't think it's for some reason. I think they feel that there's an absolute reason to shit on men. And I don't disagree in some context of it. I do think that I think that labeling all of any group of people in one direction and shitting on all of a whole group of people is a bad idea. God, I'm not sure where the fuck to start for all of what you just threw out at me. Because actually, now that you've like fully said a bunch of that stuff, and I kind of just sat here, it sounds a little bit different than the way we started this. We started the conversation before.
I guess it hurts. It hurts a little bit more.
Wow. Yeah, I'm struggling to figure out where to.
So when I'm arguing with like dumb conservatives online, or some of the Trump people, or arguing with like the misogynists, it's like I don't really care what they say because they're being stupid. And usually, like the sexist men have no comeback; they can't say anything. Or like the transphobe, same thing. It's usually an easy way. Like I just roast them, and they have no good comeback. The thing that bothers me a little bit more is when I argue with some of the people who are saying the really like anti-male stuff is like I feel like they should know better, or at least like be more understanding of my argument where I'm coming from, because like they experience the misogyny, or they probably see a lot of the transphobia, and a lot of these people are in similar groups or in similar circles, neurodivergent people and etc. You think they would be more understanding of like not trying to just like lump all people into a particular thing or just like overgeneralize.
Right.
But that's kind of where I'm coming from. Is like it kind of feels a little shittier when it's coming from these people, because I feel like they should be more understanding and compassionate.
Well, I don't think they should be more so. I mean, they're still human, man. So they're still locked into human, ways of thinking.
Putting things in boxes.
And also they've also got histories. They've got histories of a man treating them poorly, whether it's through perceived poorly or it's actually being poorly being treated by them. Same thing with any type of prejudice against an entire group of fucking people. I think that the history that somebody has with that group of people or somebody from that group of people is going to create a lot of that, almost trauma response kind
Like
of thing.
Ye?
Who? Oh, Kanye.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I was joking because of all of his anti-Semitic stuff.
Oh,
he's been
yeah,
doing, and like the Heil Hitler song and all
Yeah,
that.
I don't know shit about that guy.
So
I know
he came out with
rap.
he came out with
now
a
it's
song
joke.
recently called N-word Heil Hitler.
What?
Yeah, he has a song. So I should have known. Like I assumed that you knew about this because it's
No.
been a huge thing on the internet for like the past 2 weeks.
No.
So Kanye came out with a new song called Heil Hitler,
Uh-huh.
and the music video is a bunch of black guys
Uh-huh.
singing in a chorus saying N-word Heil Hitler.
Oh.
Yeah, and he says all my N-words Nazis, and he's talking about him being the villain, and yeah. But I'm saying that you could say that, well,
What?
in his mind, he believes that Jewish people are responsible for all of the bad things going on in his life right now, like him losing all of his contracts and
Sure.
his kids being taken away. So he's blaming Jewish people for all
Sure.
that.
It has nothing to do with the dumbass shit he says. Has nothing to do
I'm
with that.
I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that in his mind, he feels justified.
Yeah, no, I understand how he feels a certain way.
He also came out with a song called Cousins about him and his cousin being little kids and accidentally watching gay porn and then blowing each other.
What?
I'm not kidding.
What?
He has a song called Cousins,
Uh-huh.
and it's about him being a little boy
Uh-huh.
with his cousin.
Uh-huh.
They accidentally discovered gay porn and then started mimicking the stuff in the porn they saw. And he's talking about giving his cousin head.
Oh.
Yeah.
The fuck is wrong with that, man? Not that he, going down to your cousin is probably a bad thing.
In fact, the chorus is, I gave my cousin head. I gave my cousin head.
What?
That's the chorus of the song. Sorry, I got us derailed now. It's just
What the fuck?
what you were saying made me think of the whole Ye stuff that's been going on. So,
Oh.
yeah.
What were we talking about?
I was talking about people being
What the fuck?
assholes online.
Oh,
But it's just
assholes
the,
online.
The Ye
right.
thing just reminded me of because he's obviously super anti-Semitic now. So
Sounds like he's super a whole lot of things.
maybe he
And-
needs to go back on medication.
Yes.
I think he was on bipolar meds and he doesn't take them anymore.
Yeah. He was diagnosed with it, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. God, that all sorts of effed me up in the head. What?
You know,
All right.
that he's
Where
literally
to jump in?
he's literally making Nazi music, like
Oh my
black,
good
quote unquote,
God.
black Nazi music.
Okay, so I think I said the word prejudice at some point, either
Yeah.
before or during.
You were
the
saying that
recording.
people have experiences with
Oh,
certain
okay,
groups of
so-
people that cause them to
Okay.
be prejudiced or biased or bigoted against
so
them.
I will say that sometimes people got to check their own thinking before they start accusing people of things. And I'm not saying that somebody hasn't mistreated them, but to demonize an entire group of people because somebody demonized somebody at one point. So we got to kind of keep our own kind of experiences sometimes in check when we're talking to somebody else, especially when they didn't do it. They just happen to look like somebody who did.
On a
And I
similar
think
note,
some of that kind of is what fuels misogyny, misandry, if it even exists.
like a guy
and,
was treated poorly by
phobias.
a bunch of different girls, and now he just hates all women,
Yeah,
or he's rejected a bunch of times,
yeah,
or
exactly.
or
Exactly. And then he takes out his resentment and bitterness of being
but
treated
the
that way onto
transphobia
other
thing,
women.
I think, is different because I
I
don't
agree.
because I don't think a lot of these people who are saying all this shit actually have any experience with any trans people at all.
So that's why lumping some of this stuff together and some of those terms together becomes problematic. But I think all of it stems from, and I was saying this before, I think all of it comes from prejudice, a type of prejudice.
Well, they also have this fake image of a person in their head, like specifically when it comes to trans people.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of these people who are saying this shit
Mhm.
probably don't know any trans people or know any trans people very well, and they build up this image of what they think trans people are. Or they think that
they
they're
have a prototype in their head.
they think that they're groomers, or they're just men who are pretending to be women so they
Right.
can win at sports, or they think all these
Right.
different things, and so
Right.
they have no actual real life experience with these people.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like those people who are super racist against black people and they don't even know any black people.
Right.
Those people in the deep south.
So, I mean, the people who have no interaction with somebody or any familiarity with somebody of a group, but they hate that group anyway, those people I generally don't talk about when it comes to these kind of conversations because they don't have any way to counterbalance that prejudice or that
exposure.
That inexperience, if you will. Yeah, the
Daryl Davis, the guy I've mentioned a million times on the show.
Yeah, like I'm gonna start calling him your best friend.
I would love to meet that guy.
So would I. God, I'd love to have him on this show just to ask him some fucking questions. My first question is, why in the fuck?
He's actually, I mean, I think he's explained that a bunch of times. He just felt like
in other interviews that I haven't seen.
He just felt like it was something he should do.
I don't watch all the interviews the guy's ever done.
He seems like kind of a hippie at heart. He's just like, man, I just love everybody. You know, he just wanted to like, you know, find out why these people felt that way. Very curious.
I get the curiosity of why. So getting back to where we were, I think it all boils down, like there's a ton of different words to represent a dislike, disdain for a group of people. Okay. There's a ton of different words for it, or hate on people, or dislike, or having negative fucking feelings and actions towards a group of people. But I think a lot of it comes down to prejudice. And I know before we started recording, you said that wasn't specific enough. I think the problem with the word prejudice now is that everybody wants more severe language or more heightened language to define certain things, but I think it all comes from prejudice inside. I think that's where it all stems from. And I'm not trying to demean people's experiences, whether it be racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, shitting on somebody because they're fucking, I don't know, purple. I don't want to diminish that all those differences exist and they affect people in different ways. I'm just saying that all of it, I think, internally from the person doing it to them comes from prejudice.
Well, here's an interesting...
I think that in itself, that word in itself got used so fucking much. People were just like, yeah, okay, he's just prejudiced. And then they needed a stronger fucking word. Now, I know all of these words have existed for a long fucking time. But like misandry is a word that has maybe existed a long time, but it's used more often now, and so I would say it's like newer to our social, I don't know, understanding.
Do you think that it's being used now more because there's a lot more open kind of like shitting on dudes?
I think that's why people are trying to push the idea of misandry.
So I have one for you.
Like if we need a fucking word to specify when somebody's shitting on a dude or shitting on a woman, fine.
I have a controversial one for you.
Okay.
So there was a girl. There was a post where they did the social experiment, and there was a guy asking people for help, and a bunch of people stopped to help him. It was a bunch of women who stopped to help a man in need, right?
Yeah.
And then this woman in the comments pointed out that Ted Bundy trapped women by doing the same thing, like pretending he needed help, and then women would help him, and then he kidnapped them. Yeah. To which I was thinking about it, and I did some, because I'm fucking autistic. I looked up the statistical likelihood of you being killed by a stranger, because I couldn't find specific data on like somebody being tricked into helping a stranger. But if you look at the statistical likelihood of a woman being murdered by a stranger is 0.0001.
Yeah, it's a really small likelihood.
0.00, that's 30, 0.30018 or something like that.
Very, very small likelihood.
So, but women...
I actually just tried to explain this to my director last night when I was having a beer with her. I was trying to explain this to her as well.
You have more of a chance, a higher likelihood of being struck by lightning than you being killed by a stranger, or a strange man.
Yes.
If you're more likely to be killed by a man that you know, but being killed by like a random stranger who needs help, because they were trying to say that you shouldn't stop and help strangers who need help. Or she was saying that if you're a woman, you shouldn't help a man in need because it's possibly a threat to you. Right. And yeah, you can't say there's no possibility that they might hurt you.
It's just a small
likelihood. And the possibility, because I'm just talking about killing because that's what they brought up.
Yeah.
What if they were assaulted or raped or something like that? That's also another thing to factor in. But my point is that it's a high, people exaggerate the likelihood. It's kind of like when we talked about people worried about their kids being kidnapped by a stranger. The stranger danger thing is like blown out of proportion because the likelihood of a stranger randomly kidnapping or hurting your kids is very rare. Like doesn't happen very often. Same thing, being murdered by a stranger doesn't happen often. It's more so usually somebody you know or somebody you're close to. But when people weaponize statistics, this is where I was going with it. So people will I don't really mean what I'm trying to say is like,
I get what you mean. I get what other people mean. I just fucking hate the term.
so women who like to like bring up that men are abusive and do all these different things and commit more crime. It's true. Men do commit more crime, especially more violent crime.
Yeah.
Women who commit crimes tend to not commit as violent crimes, or when they do commit a violent crime, they find a less violent way to do it. So, for instance, women murder, they tend to murder with like poison and things like that, rather than shooting somebody in the face or stabbing somebody. So they'll bring these things up when they're talking about why women should be afraid of men, right? Mm-hmm. It's still a small percentage chance that you'll be hurt or whatever by a random dude. Right. Men are like, I think like 5 or 6 times more likely to be hurt by a random guy, because men usually attack other men. They don't usually attack women.
Right.
But racists will also use the same arguments to justify why you should be afraid of black people. They'll say, well, black people commit more violent crime. They'll say that black people commit way more murders per capita than white people. So that's why you should be afraid of black people. So they'll use the same arguments. And I just find it interesting that women who argue about men will use the same arguments that racists use to justify being prejudiced against black people. But it's okay when they do it, but not okay when the racists do it. That's my hot, controversial take.
Holy shit.
And do you think there's any justification? Like maybe women should be more afraid of men because men do commit more violent crime and more rapes and more murders and all that. But then do you also have to say, well, then the racists are justified in being afraid of black people because black people commit more violent crime?
No.
So why is one okay and the other's not?
I'm actually not okay with either one.
Okay.
So we're also at a time period where,
or actually, I think
men attempt to.
I think I know why they would justify it.
Great, go for it.
They would
I'm
say,
not talk.
I just thought, I just thought.
No, I would just keep
so
going.
I think that they would say, because I'm trying to play devil's advocate now.
Yeah.
I think that they would say that it's justified because the reason why black people are committing the violent crime is because of the circumstances they were put into by white people, and because black people are an oppressed group.
So justifying the crime?
And men are not an oppressed group. Therefore, the fact that there's a disparity in statistics is less justified, because the men who are committing all these violent acts don't have any justifiable reason for committing the viable acts, which the black people have more of a reason because they're in poor areas and they have bad schools and all these things that have been all these historical things committed against them.
Yeah.
I think that's why they would say that one is justified and one's not. I could be wrong, but
that could very well be that somebody will use that as a justification. My goodness.
Am I wrong?
The basis of your thinking, I don't think is necessarily wrong, but I think there might be more to it that me and you don't know about, or that we're missing out on in this conversation right now.
I'm thinking about it out loud, so everything that they're hearing is me just vomiting what's coming out of my head.
It's just straight out of your mouth, which is usually what I do.
I'm thinking as I'm talking.
I'm like at a super loss because we're jumping around a lot, and some of these things are
in my head. They're
nuanced,
connected.
in my opinion. I know,
because they're justifying their prejudice, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's literally what both sides are doing.
That's what I'm getting at. Is they're saying that like, and if you don't want to call it a prejudice, like if you're somebody who thinks that men should be shit on or whatever, or you like think that there's a lot of reasons why women should be afraid of men, etc. Fine, you can call it something else. You don't have to call it prejudice. My point is that you're using the fact that men commit more crime and all that to justify it. And they do this. Racist people do the same thing when it comes to black people. But it's still a small percentage of the population that are doing these things. And you're still generalizing those statistics to an entire group. So I can't treat every single black person like they're a black person in the south side of Chicago shooting up other gang members constantly. And like that's where a lot of
everybody in the south side of Chicago is doing that.
Right. But I can't treat every person like that.
Right.
And the same thing, I wouldn't walk around and treat every guy like they're a rapist or a murderer.
Some would say, but that's because you're a guy.
Well, I also don't walk around and treat every woman like she's, I don't know what, like all of the stereotypes that guys think about women.
Right. Don't automatically assume all women want is my money.
Well, somebody pointed out when I was arguing in comment sections with people about this stuff, one of the things person pointed out was like, how come you're going around and just, this person was like obsessively, they're probably autistic too. They were obsessively reading, they were reading all of my comments, and then they started like spamming me with comments. And I'm like, why are you going through every single comment I've made? Like they were looking at all the comments I replied to other people. And they said like, how come you are it sounds like you're just actively disagreeing with every single woman who comments. And I'm like, honestly, I didn't even notice the gender of the people responding.
Right.
I was just looking at what they said.
Right.
I was like, I didn't look at their name or their picture. I'm just reading what they said and replying to it. Like,
Yeah.
they could be, I assume some of them were men, but what does it even matter? Like, I'm just responding to what the person's saying. The gender doesn't, I'm not just disagreeing with people because they're women.
Right.
I was disagreeing with people because I felt like they were generalizing and reducing things down to these simple dichotomies. And what?
No. I was thinking.
Oversimplifying.
an
They were
example in my set.
oversimplifying things.
Yeah.
And like generalizing about people. And I just don't like when people do that. And that's why I pointed out, like, I do the same thing when I see people doing that to women or trans people online. It irritates me when I see people making these broad generalizations or just being nasty, right?
Yeah, that's my general standpoint on everything.
With the women thing lately,
generality.
I've seen a lot of it more like just it's just like the slut shaming stuff and or the overly sexualizing women just being creepy and like that. I find that gross. Yeah, so I usually reply to dudes who are saying that kind of stuff and troll them a bit.
So when I was on my private account for TikTok the other day, I saw I saw a clip and I went into the comments and I commented and I was scrolling through and I was reading through and I was commenting on the ones that I felt like saying something about. And somebody commented on one of them and accused me of pretty much doing the same thing. Why are you only arguing with women? You're in a woman's space. Why are you even commenting? And I responded with, I didn't realize this was a woman's only space. I apologize if it was. And as far as me only commenting to women, I didn't know most of them were women. I didn't go to their profiles. I just read their comment and I responded. And that's it. And the person said you should always check the person's profile before you comment because they might be smarter than you. For one, how is their profile going to tell me if they're smarter than me or not? And two, I don't give a shit what the gender of the person was. They made a comment that I didn't agree with or that I thought needed a little extra information added to it because I thought they were misrepresenting something or whatnot. So I commented. I didn't give a fuck who it was. And so it's very similar to what you're talking about. Except for you purposely go and fucking troll some of those spaces, and I just end up in them.
Well,
sometimes.
I'm not looking. I'm not going out of my way. I'll see something.
It sounds like you go out of your way to troll somebody's fucks.
I do, but
Okay.
I'm saying I don't go out of my way to find people to troll. I'll see something. Like I saw a news article about a trans athlete.
Yeah.
And then the comments were all these people saying nasty things.
Yeah.
So then like I find a couple of the most popular ones and I'll just say something funny to make fun of them.
Right.
But it's not like I'm spending hours doing this. I'll just take a couple minutes just to troll them.
You say
or
a
like,
couple of minutes.
Or when it's a guy who's commenting on a woman's appearance.
Yeah.
One guy, I actually have the picture on my phone. I'm not going to show it because I don't want to put the guy on blast. But
Yeah. Then why did you take the picture of it?
I took his profile picture and replied to his comment with just his picture. With no words, nothing, just his picture. Because he's ugly.
Oh.
It's an ugly older man who's overweight.
Wait. So you're going to shame somebody for shaming somebody?
Exactly. That's why I said before that when I troll people, I'm not trying to be PC. If you're gonna, you're gonna shame someone else on their appearance or fat shame somebody or slut shame somebody, then by all means, I'm gonna do the same to you. Or if you're gonna make fun of somebody for being trans or gay, or when people talk about LGBTQ stuff, and I'll make jokes about that person being gay.
Right.
I don't have a problem with people being gay. You do. So if I call you gay and you get upset, that's because you're the fucking person who has a problem with gay people.
Well, yes, that's how it would work.
So yeah, when I troll people, a lot of people in our on our spaces or who follow our podcast or who follow on our page, they probably wouldn't like some of the things I say to these people, but I'm doing it with love.
I'm hating with love.
That's right. I'm giving them a taste of their own medicine.
They don't care. All you're going to do is harden them into their belief even more.
They get mad at me, but then they just never have any good comebacks.
What?
Like some guy.
The woman, give a shit.
The woman that I was saying, I was pretending like she was trans.
Yeah.
Because I knew it would bother her. She like took a look at my profile picture and tried to say that my girlfriend is a trans woman. I'm like, oh, it's a great comeback. Yeah, like they never have anything. Yeah, they're never good. Or one guy called me like an F word and soy cuck and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
By F word, you mean the gay slur?
Yes.
Okay.
And
just checking.
Another guy was saying that I was, what did he say? Oh, I made fun of him. And then he said, wow, he's like, did you have to like grab a dictionary to look up all those words? Because apparently my insults were too intelligent. So he couldn't follow.
Oh man.
And I said, "Oh, I guess you're not used to interacting with people who have an IQ above 2 digits."
How can you get away with some of this shit? I say something like that I don't even think is all that bad, and fucking TikTok fucking like hinders me.
No, one of my comments was recently removed from a video, but I don't know which one it was. But whatever, I don't care. Like I say mean things to people because they're being mean.
Yeah.
It's what I was like that in high school, and I haven't really been like that. I used to bully the bullies. Like when people were bullying people, I would start like giving shit to the bullies or making fun of them. And I've always been better at making fun of people than they are making fun of me. And I don't really get offended very easily. So you can say whatever you want about me. I'm not going to give a shit.
I used to be like that, but over the last, I guess, 2 years, I've gotten way more sensitive. I don't know.
I feel like some of these people just need to be.
We are 1,000 degrees.
Some of these
off
people
fucking
need
point.
to be shamed. Okay.
Yeah. No. Well, you know what Mosh would say.
What?
Shaming is not good.
I think the shaming can be a
Period.
good thing.
I agree. Actually, I think shaming. So
What if somebody is saying the most
I think-
horrendous, like horrible shit about a trans person who did nothing to them, and you like put them on blast? Now, I mean, you're shaming them in a way, but you're also like partially holding them accountable for their actions, so other people can see.
No, you're not holding them accountable at all.
You're holding them accountable in
at
the
all.
sense that if you put them, let's say we were to take somebody who is doing this horrible shit, and we have a decent reach like on Facebook.
Sure.
If we take them, which I don't do this because I don't believe in doxing people and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I took this person and doxed them, put all their information on our page,
Uh-huh.
they would probably get harassed by a bunch of people.
Yes.
That's kind of holding them accountable, but it's also
It's not
in a
at all.
shitty way.
It's not at all holding them accountable. Like, it's
well, how
not
would you
going
how
to
would you
change
hold them
behavior.
accountable?
You can. So, in my honest opinion, you cannot hold somebody accountable for the words like that. Now, if somebody says some like blatantly racist, anti-Semitic, truly homophobic something or other, or transphobic, or truly shitty things they say, you can hold them accountable by affecting their monies, but also make sure it's a public figure you're doing that to, and not, and not some like ignorant fucking dude who lives in the middle of Indiana.
One of the
who's got,
biggest,
like 6 kids he's got to take care of, because then you're going to affect those kids too, because he's a hateful guy. Now,
well, I don't actually dock people. I'm just saying
I
that
know you don't. Well, but people
the
do.
the
and
extent that I
actually
go
dislike
to
it
is
a
just
great
making
deal.
fun of them. That's the extent that I go to.
But I don't think outside of doxing somebody, I don't think you can hold somebody accountable, and you're also not holding them accountable at that point. You're in fact affecting a bunch of people who had nothing to do with it. You're hurting a bunch of people who.
Well,
have
now you
nothing
can go to
do with
the
it.
other side of it, which
his
is
kids
that
had nothing to do with it. His wife had nothing to do with it.
His
coworkers had nothing to do with it.
we can go to the other side of the argument now, which would be just because. Well, the argument would be that just because somebody has some horrible viewpoints about something.
Yeah.
Let's say this woman who is arguing with me about trans people. Maybe she's a great mom and she's an otherwise good person.
Yeah.
But she, for some reason,
has a
hates.
shitty viewpoint about trans.
She doesn't
people.
like trans women for whatever reason. Some would argue that makes her a shitty person in general. And other people would say that, well, I mean, this is something that she obviously needs to work on, or she needs to find God or find Jesus.
or
find a way to like love her fellow human being.
or find RuPaul's Drag Race or something. I don't know.
But
I mean, that's not a horrible show. So one of my issues when people do the doxing thing and when people try to hold people accountable is you actually have to hold them accountable in a way that's actually going to hold just them accountable, that's going to make them reflect on it. And the problem is you won't be able to do that if all you're doing is shaming, or if you're trying to get them fired from their job. Now you're fucking with their money, but you're not just fucking with them. You're fucking with their kids. You're fucking with their wife. You're fucking with their grandparents. You're fucking with their parents, their siblings. You are affecting somebody in more so, and you're literally hardening their belief that you were a shitty fuck, and that the group of people that they're against should be treated poorly. And so
you might be right.
And
but
also,
wouldn't a lot of people say that they deserve that?
somebody would, but who the fuck did they offend? They offended 1 or 2 people in a fucking public forum.
Right, but their opinions are contributing to the shitty treatment of people in that group.
And,
so,
by,
for instance,
and by turning around and shitting on all those people, you've actually made more people against you.
so like me talking about people being shitty about men online, it's mostly an online thing, right? But like when it comes to when it comes to the trans people
remember,
thing.
Remember that person who at the coffee
well,
shop?
yeah, but where I'm getting at with that is like, but trans people are actually being negatively impacted by these people's opinions in real life, in more severe ways than like somebody being mean to you because you're a man or because you have a penis.
I think any human being mean to somebody else just because of the shit they look like is bad.
Or women
and
being
it all contributes.
Women
to
being
it.
negatively impacted by government decisions and law. Trans people being negatively impacted by decisions that the state and local governments are making in law. Whereas me complaining about people being shitty about men, it's not because I'm a man. It's more so because of the generalization stuff I don't like. But there are more real world implications for some of those other groups because of the people negative opinions.
Then fucking elect people that support the shit you support. Okay, that's how you get policy changed. Plain and simple. Okay, and yes, there are lobbyists and all this other shit.
But in a democracy,
plain and simple, vote in the people who agree with you. And if you can't find enough people to vote in the person that's going to help pass laws that you want, then I guess there's not enough support for the fucking thing you want.
Well, that's part of the problem is in a democracy, you kind of have a majority or mob rule in a way.
No,
we don't have
majority
a
rule, not necessarily a mob rule.
Well, we don't have a pure democracy.
No, we don't.
But
thank God.
But if you live in a state that is very conservative, it's going to be hard for you as a trans person who's a minority in that state to get things that are going to favor you because you have all these people who are against you.
And I understand that, and I understand that a great deal. Okay. And I understand that it's hard to move out of those states because, you know, people don't make a lot of money and shit. And I get all of that. I do understand that. No matter what you do to the individual who's just some fucking rednecky dude who fucking drives truck or whatever, if you get his ass fired, then all the people surrounding him are also now against you if they weren't already. That creates more of a problem than just letting that asshole have his fucking opinion. If one guy spouts off at the mouth in a public forum, which I know all of these social media companies, they're all privately owned. They can censor whatever way they're going to censor. So be it. But if you're on a quote unquote public forum and somebody says something you don't like, and if somebody says something transphobic to you, you putting their home address out publicly like that and getting them fired, you've actually made worse of a problem for you and other people like you than just whatever stupid ass comment they made to you.
I will say that a lot of that information is already public, but
what?
You can find most people's addresses anyway.
Okay.
Online. Just saying.
It's actually kind of harder than some people think.
Not
like
really.
Sometimes you got to pay for a service for that kind of stuff.
So I was able to. Never mind. I'm not going to go into it. Anyway, yes, you can easily find people's addresses.
Okay, so even
for the most part, unless they don't have a legal address or something.
Even if so, okay, the other people that get affected by that,
yeah,
and they don't deserve it necessarily. They didn't do anything to you, and all the person did was use some fucking words that hurt your feelings. Now, I understand that there's a greater implication because of policy and things like that. Again, then vote in the people who fucking are going to do something about it. Okay. And if you get enough people to fucking vote and on the side of whatever issue or policy you would like to have changed, then cool. But if you can't get enough people to support the idea, then maybe your issue, you have to take up another way. But getting somebody fired affects more than just that person who said something offensive to you.
Yeah.
And you cannot, and I will fucking stand on this hill. You cannot change the perception in society through shame, force, or law. People will still find ways to be shitty to one another. I think a different way to go about doing it is by proving them wrong. Prove the transphobe wrong. Don't be the exact thing he thinks you are.
Well, I mean, if they're willing to actually listen,
but that's just.
But if you can't
get them to listen by shaming them.
Well, no, but I'm saying they might not pay attention.
Get them to shut up.
If you prove them wrong, they might not even take time out of their day. They won't give a shit to actually read what you're saying.
But you yourself are not willing to listen to anybody else's perspective either.
A more effective way, arguably, to do that would be when you're having a public debate. about stuff like that
Perfect.
because then you can prove somebody wrong and other people will be hearing it.
Yes, but unfortunately,
Because you're not arguing for the other person, you're arguing for the audience listening so that they can hear that your point makes more sense.
But unfortunately, public debates are no longer like that anymore. Okay,
they should be. One person I hate, by the way, who's
yeah.
a misogynistic debater,
Uh-huh.
Andrew Wilson. Do you ever hear that guy? Look him up later.
Yeah, how come every time we talk about things, you bring up some other rando like fucking?
So he's
person I've
a
never heard of?
popular guy on YouTube, and he goes on other podcasts and he debates people.
Sure,
But he never actually debates. The reason I don't like him is because he never actually has a debate with anybody about substance. All he does is pick apart their arguments,
yes,
and
that's what
Argue-
that's what debates have become.
he just argues. He's pedantic, and he argues about the semantics of the words the person's using. So rather than ever making an argument of his own,
Yeah.
he just tries to put down, insult,
Uh-huh.
and crap on the other person's argument without ever actually making his own. And usually it's very like misogynistic Andrew Tate type view on women. Like
Right.
that women should be like subservient
Yeah,
and
yeah.
be in the kitchen and obey their husbands. and
What's that stupid ass podcast where those group of dudes have like
which one?
it's
Whatever?
male centric.
The whatever podcast?
Yeah, them
The whatever is
fuckers.
the one in the white room with like
Yeah.
um,
With the big ass word that says whatever, in
and
the
they have a
background.
bunch of girls on who
Yeah.
they try to find like young women who are probably don't really know much, and they have them on there and insult them. When I say they don't know much, I mean because they're young and inexperienced.
Yeah, well, I mean, they clearly ask questions that these women
they ask-
have not researched.
They
at
ask girls
all.
who are like sex workers or OnlyFans
Yeah, yeah,
models. So they're people who are not prepared to actually have a debate
Right.
about anything, and then just shit on them. The same thing with that's Andrew Wilson goes on that show.
Oh,
So if you've ever seen clips from that show,
Yeah.
he's the guy who they usually have like in a box. He's like videoed in with the mic.
the beardy guy.
Yeah, he's a fucking douchebag.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Alright.
fucking hate that guy.
Alright.
And I don't
Um,
say that about anybody. I
No, that's
actually,
true. Actually,
I actually
he-
hate that
he's-
guy.
He does not use the word hate lightly.
He's a fucking scumbag. I would love to debate him someday. Because
it sounds like you wouldn't get anywhere in a debate with
no,
the
I wouldn't be
asshole.
able to. So you'd have to go down to his level and just
No.
because
No,
you
no.
wouldn't be able to get any points across because he won't let you actually make an argument or state your views. He'll just keep trying to pick apart your views before you can even get into a substantive debate.
Why don't you just keep talking?
I mean, he talks over you. That's his style. He'll just talk over people, and he's if the person keeps trying to make their point, he just starts insulting them.
Great. Let him
like, all right.
insult, but that's going to prove your point that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, no, he is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Watch any of it. Well, it's probably not worth your time. But if you watch any of his debates,
No, it's not.
he's just a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
So
I can barely stand some debates I've had to watch already. And actually, one of the reasons why I can't stand some debates is because, like, instead of sticking to your point and sticking to your conviction, instead you try to tear down somebody else's. Like, some would say that's the point of a debate. I would have to say that you're not getting anywhere by doing it. Like, when presidential debates, they always say, here's what I want to do for about 2 minutes, and then they spend the next X amount of time just fucking tearing apart the other person's point of view. Here's an idea. Why don't you just tell me what you're going to do? The other guy tells me what he's going to do or she's going to do or they're going to do. And then, we
talk
discuss.
about why mine is
What
better
the
than
fuck?
yours.
Yeah, like,
Well, your idea of this, but my idea is, yeah, because nobody cares about that. That's what they get. Like,
come on.
People.
Like, and actually, based on
Those
the way,
type of debates, I think, are more boring to the majority of people. Where they like the Trumpian debates where you just
I
insult
know,
each other.
I
and
know, like because deep down, and
It's like team sports.
And I'm sorry to say this, but deep down, I think most human beings want to live in the muck. They want to be in that shit place. They want to be in the fucking gutter all the fucking time. Like something I've been thinking about quite a bit is like the people that get the most attention in our society are the people like to bitch about the most. And everybody's like, oh my God, why does anybody listen to them? On left or right or in between, whatever. Why do people listen to these? They say such horrible stuff. They're so wrong all the time. It's only misinformation. You were exactly explaining why, because that's what people really want to hear. People want to hear somebody shitting on somebody. And like, to me, that's exactly why majority
If it
of the
bleeds, it
issues-
leads, right?
Oh my good God.
That's what like
that's-
the news they
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
focus more on negative stories because they get more attention.
Well,
If you can scare people
but
and they're
even-
like, oh, there's a new outbreak of listeria and like that type of stuff that
But that's even gone into, talking head folk and opinion people and editorial people.
the trans people are
all
coming
over
for
the
your
place.
kids.
It's in all of society. People want
They
to
talk
hear
about
that
all
shit.
these kids being trans and on puberty
Yeah.
blockers, and it's like
Well-
less than 1% of the population.
Right. I think it was like 0.8 or 0.9. No, 0.08
There's
or
not many.
0.09
There's
or
not
something
many
like that.
kids out there going on puberty blockers or getting sex
Well, there's not a lot
surgeries.
of trans people to begin with, but yet it's been in the news so goddamn much. And I'm not saying that.
I think conservatives secretly love trans people. That's why they're so obsessed with them.
I think extremists on both sides
They're obsessed.
love issues and love to stir up some shit because it causes them to make more money. And go ahead and argue with me on that one.
It's like all those conservatives who are homophobic, and it turns out that they're secretly in the closet.
Yeah. Or the pastors who preach against homosexuality, and yet they're like getting hotel rooms and shit with dudes. I forgot the one. There was one not too long ago that actually got caught doing it. And it's happened far too often that these people get fucking caught too. Like, why would you spout off at the mouth publicly that fucking often and then go get a hotel room under your name? Jesus. Anyway, God damn, there's so much we're talking about. Sorry, I thought we were going to go in a different direction for this, and now I feel a little
I just
off
wanted
guard,
to-
but I'm
to
trying
complain.
to grab hold the best I can.
I wanted to complain about people being
Okay,
shitty
so-
online and not having any sort of understanding or not being willing to, like willfully ignorant of trying to understand the
Yeah.
why, because some of the things you bring up might be true. Maybe it's true that, so when you get into the weeds of it and like, let's say, so you believe that men yelling at women is an issue as whatever the joke it was, the meme they were
Oh,
posting.
yeah.
And then somebody
you're on
talks
the
about
post
like,
again.
oh, well, there might be a justifiable reason. I'm just using it as an
Yeah.
example. But you don't look into the why, or you don't care about the why. Why might it be that people do certain things? Like, or even getting back into the controversial one I brought up,
Yeah.
right? A racist person doesn't care why crime statistics are higher in poor black communities.
Right, they don't give a fuck.
They don't care about
They
the
don't care
why.
what contributes to it.
And the same reason why when people are shitting on men online, they don't care about what might be potentially causing some of those issues, or when they're making fun of like incel type dudes who say cringe shit, or they're making fun of guys for expressing their feelings, or making fun of guys where we've talked before in the past about how a lot of times guys will express emotions in more aggressive ways because they're not taught to properly express their emotions in other ways, or they're socialized against it because you're shamed if you publicly cry or share your emotions in a more vulnerable way. So even happiness and sadness sometimes come out as aggression rather than, a more pure form of sadness or a more pure form of joy, happiness. It's more aggressive, assertive. It's like, I'm so fucking happy. Sorry.
No, you're good, my man. Like, it was about time we had an episode that it was predominantly you talking.
But nobody
rock and
cares
roll.
about going into that part of it. It's
No.
all about the, this is how I feel and this is why this group sucks and my group's better.
Yeah, well, okay, so I would say...
Because women are
I would-
pure as
I
snow
would say-
and can do no wrong.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of things that are contributing. A, the shift in power dynamic in society. B, people love to shit on something. People love to have something to blame. And that doesn't
the
mean
Jewish
men have
people
not
are a big
done
one right
bad
now.
things, but...
The Jewish one are a big one. People right now. There's a lot of.
Well, yeah, because the whole Palestine-Israel
There's
thing.
been a lot of rising anti-Semitism. The funny thing about the rising anti-Semitism thing, because I'm keeping an eye on it, is you have all these extreme right-wing people posting stuff online who hate Jewish people and hate Israel. And they're aligning with a lot of people on the left who are pro-Palestinian in the sense that they both dislike Israel. So they're both sharing anti-Semitic content.
Right.
But like one's coming from a place of like pro-Palestinian,
Yeah.
more like left-leaning spaces. And then you have like these right-wing people who like hate Jewish people because they're basically Nazis.
Uh-huh.
And it's just funny how there's like an overlap there, like with the anti-Semitism. So you have like multiple groups of people being anti-Semitic, even though it's for different reasons.
Yeah, because hate doesn't know political boundaries.
Yeah.
Hate's hate, man. Like, and I think both are just hate, plain and simple. They're just bad juju. It's somebody disliking somebody.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because
I
of
do
some
think that,
identifier
but you
label.
can criticize the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic.
You can.
Like the Israeli.
In fact, you can insult the and question and judge and criticize the Israeli government without ever bringing up Judaism.
I personally believe that they've gone way too far with the stuff they've been doing in the Gaza Strip.
Okay. I've said it before in past episodes, like shit that happens around the rest of the world, I don't care. And mostly I'm gonna say I don't care because I'm a big fan of we got to correct our house first. We got to make our own house good first.
I would say that
we
you probably
clean
just
our house before we clean our
don't have
neighbor's
enough
house.
time or energy to invest into things.
Yeah, I don't look shit up when it comes to like world politics and shit. And I understand that there's bad fucking shit going on around the world, not just in Palestine, in a lot of places around the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking countries that need help.
Africa.
Yeah, there's a lot of
specifically
countries.
In the Congo.
Yep.
I
mean, there's South American countries that like,
I was actually
if
trying
we
to
really
look.
gave a shit about other people being mistreated. We would.
I was
fucking
trying
do
to look
something
at
about
because
that
that's
too.
one thing that I don't know a lot about. But there's
What?
been like civil war and conflict going on in certain parts of Africa, like in the Congo and
Like forever. Yeah.
no, but more recently there's been a bunch of people
Yeah.
displaced, and there's like
I think
famines going on.
Sudan is one
Yeah,
of the places.
but I'm
not 100% positive on that.
I don't know a lot about it, so that's one thing I wanted to read more about because a lot of the conversation seems to be more focused on Israel, Palestine, and then more recently with the stuff going on between Pakistan and India because there was potential threat
Because there's
potential threat of
conflict there,
nuclear
too.
war
Yeah.
and them fighting with each other.
Yeah, shit.
So some of the stuff going on in parts of Africa has been kind of ignored. But I also don't know enough to say anything about it. I looked up like the gist of what's going on, but I don't know enough to speak on it.
And I know even less than you do.
Yeah.
I actually purposely avoid things about.
I don't like
all of
talking
those
about certain
conflicts.
things if I don't know enough about the topic. But it seems like there was basically a rebellion group, and the rebellion group is fighting with what was the government, and people were dissatisfied with the government, and so like they tried to overthrow it. And now because of the conflict, there's a bunch of people who are displaced and they don't have food. And
Well, you just said a minute ago you don't want to go into it.
well, I'm saying that's the extent of what I know.
Let's go back on topic a little bit because when it comes to like how people think, I feel like I know some shit. But I like even with all of those things involved, it's a group of people disliking another group of fucking people just because they're a different group of fucking people.
Yeah.
In group, out group ideas, right? And I think everything you were talking about before, like when it comes to current men's hate stuff, I think a lot of that has to do with there were some men who did all the fucking bad shit, or a lot of the bad shit. I think that is making people justified in it. I also think we're in a day and time, especially with social media, giving people as much access to being able to put their opinion out there into the world. I think people are expressing it, but instead of expressing it from a standpoint of, I had an ex partner who was male who treated me X, instead they say men suck. And so I think that's
men
lot
do
to
suck.
it. I also think that
But they would say, well, men do suck. It's just not all men.
Okay,
But you can't say not
you
all men
can't-
because it's implied, or what they would say it's implied.
Yeah, but it's not anymore because there's the entire movement of all men till no men, which I've been trying to listen and gain more nuance on. I still don't fucking like the idea. No matter how many fucking lives I fucking listen to that have that.
Would you
statement
say
up
that
and people
that's
talk
because
about it.
you were born male?
I don't know. No, part of what I don't understand about it is because I don't look at groups as generalized. I look at things as very individualized. I look at individuals more so than anything else.
When
so like
they say that that's a
when-
privileged way to look at it because you don't have to worry about being, you don't have to worry about as much about being essayed or overpowered because you're male. They would say that, women on average are not as strong, or women on average are smaller, and it's much easier
I don't
for a
hear
man.
a lot of women in those spaces talking about that women are smaller.
I'm
or
saying
weaker or any of the descriptions you
well,
just gave.
but I mean physically smaller.
Yeah.
because it is true.
It
It's
is,
a fact
on
that women
average.
are on average shorter.
Yeah.
Women on average are not as physically strong.
Yeah.
Unless they work out and it's a
Yeah.
guy who's fat and doesn't work out. But I'm just saying on averages. We're talking about averages.
We're
here.
talking averages.
The average man is
Yeah.
stronger than the average woman. So they would argue that it's much easier. You have more to fear as a woman from a man because a lot of men can easily overpower a woman and et cetera. I mean, unless you're training in self-defense, but the average person is not trained in martial arts
That
or
is true.
self-defense and stuff
That
like
is
that.
true.
So you're talking about the average person.
Yeah.
They would argue that the average woman has more to fear from the average man than the average man has to fear from the average woman. Just playing devil's advocate here.
I understand. I understand the argument that they would say. It's just, if you hold all men accountable for all men, I think that is doing an injustice to yourself. I think it's doing an injustice against all of an entire group of people. And I think it's no different than the men who say that all women are weak and need a man in their life. I think it's no different than people who inappropriately judge an entire race of people, an entire religion, an entire any fucking demographic you want to name off. I think it's no different than that. And one of the reasons why I say it's no different is because when I sit in those spaces, I don't say a fucking word and I just listen to the way people talk. And they make the same fucking conclusions. They make the same fucking supposed logical arguments.
How many of those people?
How
many of those people that are making these arguments have kids?
I don't know. I don't ask.
It would seem to me.
Listen. I just sit there and I don't say anything.
Now I don't have kids, but it would seem to me that a lot of times women who say that sort of stuff, their opinions start to change if they have a child, especially if they have a boy.
Yes, well, because now it personally affects them.
Yeah,
a lot more, and it personally affects them in a different way
because they don't want people to be prejudiced against their child. Yeah.
Well,
for being male.
I also think it's kind of fucky because there have been men in some of these people's lives, who have been good to them. But they don't remember those. They remember all the bad men, okay? All the people who did them wrong who were male. And I can't even say male. I have to say man. Again, what happened to the separation between the two of those? Anyway.
I've talked about on the show, I've had, like in the past, I had a lot of bad experiences with women growing up. And my high school years in my 20s. And part of that was probably me being undiagnosed and not really understanding social cues. And like, I didn't know how to properly court somebody, and I probably made a lot of mistakes, but I didn't understand that. So I used to get frustrated and annoyed with women. And I did also talk to a lot of women who were probably not right for me or shitty. They were shitty to me, emotionally abusive. It doesn't, just because I also had issues and had socialization problems, doesn't mean that them treating me shitty was also justified. However, the point I'm trying to make is that I did go through a period of time where I kind of like didn't want to talk to women. I had kind of like some slightly misogynist views, and I kind of like hated women for a while because I was sick of being treated poorly and all these bad experiences I had.
And if you had come across,
but then I got over that,
who reaffirmed that and reinforced that belief, you could have held it, and it became rock hard inside of you, and you would have carried that further and been misogynistic to.
But then eventually, I realized that my feelings were stemming. I realized what was causing those feelings. And that it was illogical and unreasonable for me to treat all women a certain way or to judge women. Because I didn't really treat women shitty. It was more just like I had a prejudice in my head against them. It was like I just assumed that all women were shitty. Even though I hadn't actually met the person. But I didn't treat them bad. I just, in the back of my head, I'm like, this person's probably going to hurt me. They probably don't actually care about me. If a woman's interested in me, she's not actually interested in me for who I am as a person.
You took your baggage out on somebody else.
Right.
Got it.
But I've got over that. And I think a lot of people do the same thing with men if they had bad experiences with men, or if their father was a shitty person, if their brother was a shitty person, if they dated a bunch of really shitty guys.
I also think that they never become aware enough. Well, not never. I think a lot of the times they continue on trying to date the same type of people, hanging out with the same type of people, surrounding themselves by people who are just reaffirming and strengthening those misguided views. And I think they never, ever, ever sit back and go, am I choosing the wrong people? Am I the one who's thinking about this in the wrong way? Do I have a role to play in the way somebody else treated me? Because I'll say this much. Every time I hear somebody talk about how their partner, okay, now hold on before I say the rest of this. I'm not talking about the actual super abusive relationships. I'm talking about like the middle of the rung, like average relationships that are just kind of shitty. Okay. I don't want anybody to mishear what I'm saying. I think a lot of the times when people bitch and moan about bad relationships, okay, they blame the other person all the time. And they need to be checking on themselves a little bit too. Because when I ask people, well, what are you looking for in a partner? They start naming off shit that I can tell you it could be a red flag for this fucking person. Okay. Like I used to work with a young lady, and she was having a horrible time dating people. She kept going on dating sites and looking for people, and she was going on all these first dates, but couldn't find anybody. And I said, well, what's your criteria for dating? And she was like, I don't know. I'll just know what I know. And I said, isn't that how you found your last partner? Because you'll know when you know. Well, yeah. Isn't that how you found the guy previously? Well, yeah. And you always talk about how both of them you thought were really, really bad, and they were bad relationships, and they made you feel bad about who you were. So maybe you should put a set of criteria together. And I wasn't trying to fix her, and I wasn't trying to, nothing more than trying to point out that doing everything based on feel, you're going to get wrapped up in shit, and you're not going to see some of the things you don't want in a relationship.
You also have kind of rose-tinted glasses in the beginning. Because you're kind of, when you start finding, when you're initially attracted to somebody, if you're going kind of through the lust stage, you're probably blind to a lot of that person's red flags. So if you don't have those criteria and you just follow your genitals, right, then you're going to end up in bad situations.
That's why you develop a criteria for yourself. Yeah. And I told you, make a criteria of 5 things, 5 major things that you're looking for in a partner. Okay. And try to have them be value sets or traits. Okay. Don't have them be things like, have a job, make money, secure financially. Like some of that stuff can be important, but if you look at it from a trait or a value perspective of the 5 things you're looking for, and you hold yourself to those 5 things, then you're more likely to find somebody who makes sense for you. But the second you let your genitals do the speaking for you, right? And even if you do let your genitals do the speaking for you, then play out the lust and then break the fuck up with them.
Or at least
and I'm not talking
hook
about
up with them and then find out if you're actually compatible.
Yeah. Like fucking break up with them. Fuck until you don't want to fuck no more, or whatever the case may be. I'm also saying I also want to make sure that people don't misunderstand me. I am not blaming people who are truly abused in relationships. I am not blaming people who become victims of predators.
Yeah, we're just talking about setting yourself up for success.
I'm talking about like average, everyday, like fucking make up, break up relationship kind of things. The vast majority of times when I hear a man or a woman talk about how their ex treated them like shit, okay, you're the one who fucking picked that person, and you're the one who didn't see some of the warning signs ahead of time, and you do actually need to take accountability for the fact you chose the motherfucker.
It's kind of like when people talk about self-defense. Yeah. It's like, well, people shouldn't have to learn self-defense. Yeah, you're right. But like,
and also
in the case if something happens, it's good to have it. It's like having the criteria is helpful. The people who are going to attack somebody or mug somebody or essay or rape somebody, they're not going to care whether it's right or wrong or not, because they're the type of people they don't care about rules. They don't care about what's acceptable. They just what they do. Yeah. So like, why wouldn't you take steps to try to protect yourself? It's the same thing with like, with having the criteria. Why wouldn't you take steps to like put yourself off on a good foot, or to have higher chances of succeeding? Right.
Well, and I think that criteria is kind of the same way when it comes to who you date. And I will also say that like, if you're somebody who's been hurt in relationships, regardless of the kind of hurt, okay, for one, know the difference between trauma and just being hurt in a relationship. Okay. And I hate that people use the word trauma so fucking much. Know the difference between it, but even if you've been traumatized in a relationship because it was highly abusive or whatnot, make sure you're doing the work on you, that you're not taking that baggage into the next relationship and hurting somebody else, and or end up finding somebody who also will then eventually abuse you. Like, learn from the bad shit that happened. And I'm not putting it all on you, whoever's listening to this, and going, oh my God, you're such an asshole. Well, I've said it enough that I am. But you yourself do have to take responsibility moving forward to process your own pain, to deal with it, to put it where it needs to belong, and then be able to find a partner that's actually going to not just support you, because that's something I hear a lot too. People say, I want somebody who can support me. Yeah, how about be there together? Like, be there for one another. And I know, well, maybe that's what the fuck they say, but I rarely hear people talk about it in that way. I want a man who's emotionally available. Do you really? Because I don't think you know what you're asking for. Like one of the lives not too long ago. It wasn't a man hating one at all. It was just supposed to be about just relationships. And this one guy was talking about how he feels, because of some dates that he had been on recently, he feels that women are just looking for a man who makes as much or more money than they do, and that's it. And this one woman goes, not every woman is a gold digger. And that's not what he was trying to say at all. And then he started to argue, and then the host of the live came on and said that can't women have standards? Well, he didn't say women can't have standards either, but it was the automatic jumping. And then the host said to the other woman, of course I'm going to support you being another woman. Well, he didn't say nothing against not either one of you, actually, but it was the camaraderie of it, of like, I'm going to support you just purely because you're a woman, even though you were wrong. Oh yeah, my point behind that, though, is he had a negative experience, okay, of recent dates that did not go well, and he was trying to express himself, and two people shut him down immediately and were making it his fault that those first dates did not go well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had dates like that where it feels like you're on a job interview. Like you go on a date with somebody, and rather than trying to get to know each other personally, it's like they're going through a checklist of like, what do you do for work? How much money do you make? What kind of car do you drive? And it's like, the fuck, like, what is this? Like, because you feel like you're being interviewed for a job rather than actually going on a date and trying to get to know somebody. And it's not that it's not okay for women to have those standards, but it's very off-putting as a guy when you're in that situation, because it makes you feel like you as an individual person don't matter. Yeah. If it makes it feel like those stereotypes about women being gold digger, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a gold digger. Like maybe they just want to be with somebody who's financially stable, right? But it's very off-putting because it makes you feel objectified as a man, that you're just there as like a paycheck or somebody. They just care about your car and your money and stuff, rather than getting to know you as an individual. And
some woman would probably say, well, how do you like it? Because they felt objectified quite a lot. And I would say, actually, doing unto others what has been done unto you is a shitty fucking rule.
Yeah, but I've also pointed out earlier that part of the reason this whole conversation started was me shitting on guys who are doing that to women online and being overly sexual about things that aren't sexual at all and just being fucking creeps. Like that, I find that stuff gross and annoying. Yes, I mean, I wouldn't do that either.
I don't think the date thing and the trolling you do have a connection there. I don't find it to be the same.
I'm just saying that I don't like when guys are objectifying women in that way. So why would I do that? But
it's okay for a woman to objectify a man in her way?
I'm saying, why would I do that on a date?
Other men do.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I will say, though, is like, if you are a woman who goes on a first date with a guy and you do have that checklist and you're essentially like adding that man up to just being what he can do for you, and he turns around and goes, well, at least you're a size 2. Like, don't get mad at him. You got your criteria, he's got his. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, that's horrible. You know what? Everybody got criteria, and everybody deserves to be able to have their criteria, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just more about I understand people being it's not a great feeling when you're meeting with somebody and it feels like they're going through a checklist in their head rather than actually spending time getting to know you. The same thing, like, I'm sure if I was on a date with a woman and I started asking her, like, so what's your cup size? You know, like, what size dress are you?
Hold on. But that's stuff you can see. That's stuff you can see. You don't get the exact letter, but you can see that kind of stuff. But if you were on a dating site, okay, and you just saw the person's face and you were chatting with them a little bit, and a lot of your interests lined up and stuff, and then you met them in person and they were 350 fucking pounds, would you keep going with the date?
Me personally, yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's true.
I've been in those situations.
Just based on the exes I've seen you with, that's what I'm basing.
Because I tend to date more petite girls.
Really? Is that the word we're going to use?
So
I'm going to say almost non-existent.
I just think they're healthy, petite-sized women.
So, way to describe that. They could be fucking anorexic and unhealthy as shit.
Have I ever dated somebody who was anorexic?
No. Well, I don't fucking know.
I've been on dates with people that weren't my physical preference, but it doesn't mean that I would walk out. I would still have the date.
I didn't say that, though. I didn't say you would walk out.
You just said that I would. Would you sit through the date?
Would you go to a second date?
Oh, probably not.
Would you continue on? Even though you have preferences?
What do you mean continue on? Like,
continue on is continuing to see the person.
It depends. Like, as a friend,
Yeah. You know what I meant when I said continue on.
Yeah, but
you
that's
know what I meant.
I'm just not particularly attracted to people who are that big.
That's actually my point I'm trying to get at, because
I wouldn't want to waste their time, but I wouldn't be rude about it.
I didn't say you would necessarily. I was trying to get at the point of you would end it because you don't find them physically attractive. Okay.
Yeah.
And the point I was trying to get at before we went into the longer version of it was some of these women who walk in the door and say, how much do you make annually? Okay. That is something important to them, and they're trying to get it out of the way so they don't have to waste their fucking time with you anymore. Okay. So when you feel like they're doing a checklist, you yourself did a checklist. You just didn't necessarily
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that the guy in that situation, it's very off-putting because you're not actually it feels like you don't give a crap, because I think that in addition to those particular things that you have like criteria for dating somebody, like you also want to make sure that your personalities align, or that you're actually.
But that's why I said traits, core values, right? The 5 criteria is about values, not about do they have a car, do they not have a car? Because like at any given moment, a person can be fired from a fucking job, and you might be catching them when they're in between jobs, right? And maybe they had a good goddamn job and they got a huge fucking savings account. You don't know.
I think part of my problem is that's
why you do it based
I've
on
always
the traits.
assumed, or not assumed, but I've always expected or wanted when I go on a date, I expect the other person to, or at least I don't really go on dates anymore, but when I was younger, when I went on dates, I expected that the other person would be looking not for the same things as me, but they would judge people based on the same things. Like I assumed that like when you went on a date with somebody, you were trying to see if you were compatible, like personality. Because I didn't go on a date with somebody and like I didn't care about all those things. Like I don't care if a person went to college or not, or like all these other things. I'm going on a date when a first date with somebody. I'm trying to find out, do we have chemistry? Are we able to have a conversation? Like those are the type of things I'm like, I want somebody that I can have a good conversation with, somebody that I can joke around with, who has a good sense of humor.
Sure.
Like those are the things I'm looking for. So I had assumed stupidly that when I go on a first date with somebody that they're going to be looking also like at my personality and not fishing for all these other things.
Yes, but some of those things are important to have involved. Same thing with, I mean, if you're asexual, this does not apply to you.
Being physically
But for
attractive,
the rest of us,
being physically attracted to somebody is important.
Yes.
But for me, the thing that's more important than anything else is like being with somebody whose personality, especially when it comes to the sense of humor, is a big thing for me. And making sure like there's somebody I can laugh and joke around with.
Yeah, but that's values, right? Somebody who has the same sense of humor as you, that's a value set, right? That's something to look for. But being able to have a conversation, dude, anybody can have a conversation, but you don't give a shit about fashion. So if somebody is super into fashion and they're talking about fashion all the time, but you want to talk about like political issues, then the two of you don't mesh up.
Not necessarily.
So they might be good at conversation.
I've also like had relationships or good friendship with people where they're into different things, but I like digged into the thing. They like asked some questions about it because I am interested in learning about other things. So if I don't know anything about fashion, but you have a lot of interesting stuff to say about it.
So here's what I'll say. Okay. I personally am super into psychology, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But there are times where you don't give a fuck about having that conversation and you divert it to whatever current topic is going on in the news. Because you care about a lot of political stuff, you care about certain current social issues and things going on in the government and stuff like that. And so if you found somebody who is equally into that, whether it's on the right or the left, but equally into that, okay, that's the kind of conversation that would intrigue you more. That's the kind of person that would intrigue you more. I think that if the person was wicked into fly fishing, you wouldn't give a fuck. I would think that if the person's wicked into basketball, you would get into it because you want to spend time with this person. But I don't think it's something you would ever seek out on your own.
Their interests are actually not that important to me. As I've realized over the years with dating, like somebody's personal interests are not that important to me. I care more about like how they carry themselves as a person.
Like I said, the value set, the 5 criteria of value or traits that they have. It's not about preferences. People get that really fucked up. And I'm going to say this straight up. Like I am no dating expert. In fact, I usually start our shows by saying that we are not experts in anything. But here's something I absolutely fucking know. Looking at somebody and going on a date with somebody and asking them what kind of music they like is so not important. What kind of movies do they like? Not important. what kind of car they drive, not important.
Those can be catalysts for deeper conversations, but
they can. But it's generally
you can start out talking about. Well, you can start
Okay.
talking about the superficial stuff to
Yeah.
break the ice, and then try to get into more like.
Yeah.
I think that finding out if you're
Who do you wanna
compatible,
go on vacation.
like finding out if you're
Fucking
compatible
not
with somebody, would probably involve talking more about philosophical ideas.
What religion are you? Do
yeah,
you want to
belief.
have children? How do you want to raise children? What part of the country would you prefer to live in, and why? What charities do you donate to, or do you not? That would be one of them. Social welfare programs. How do you feel about them? Those are things that are important. Giving a shit like what kind of home do you want to own if they don't own one already? And if they do own one already, why did they choose that one? Those are things that are indicative of like core value sets to people. What do you think the most important thing in a relationship truly is? Like those are important questions to answer.
Yeah.
When it comes to those preference-y kind of things, like none of that shit really matters because people's preferences change over time, but core values rarely do. Like how people choose to live their life and what they care about, like that rarely changes. I mean, it does change at times, but
I mean, I care about being with somebody who's kind, and I have my own criteria. I have
kind
my
of.
own criteria for what kind is.
Yes.
But my
what I was
criteria
gonna
for
say.
kind, somebody who's not super stingy, not super selfish, somebody who's willing to help and be giving. Those are what I see as being kind.
But all to a degree.
A turn off for me would be somebody who's extremely selfish, who's unwilling to help people in need.
Extremely emotional.
Um,
Extremely sensitive.
I don't know about that.
Oh, I do.
It depends on what kind of sensitivity.
Uh-huh.
But like I would have a hard time being with somebody who's easily offended
Yes.
because I like to joke around and
Because
I
you
play
start off at the mouth.
and
like
I say things that are sometimes inappropriate, but in a joking way.
Yep. Sometimes we say some shit that's less than intelligent. I'm gonna word it that way. So want to like getting back to the
And I like talking
topic at
about
hand.
taboo things.
Yeah. I mean,
Which some people don't.
so I think some of this ties into it as well because like some of the things that we choose for the partner that we have, a lot of that is based out of the prejudices we have too. I mean, it might not seem like it, they connect, but they really kind of do because our biases, our prejudices drive us in one direction, which is away from the prejudices that we have. But that also means that we're not going to experience anything different. I actually saw something earlier today. I'm trying to get back on track, but I saw a TikTok and somebody in the comments said one of the things that they would block somebody for is because they found out they voted for the other side. Now, I'm assuming they're blue, by the way. But it was the idea that you're going to cut people off. It was about echo chambers. The person said that there's nothing wrong with an echo chamber. And
Depends on the purpose of the echo chamber.
that was their statement, though. I'm assuming that they were talking about certain.
Like if you're talking about a place that's supposed to be a safe space, then you probably don't want people who are going to dissent or disagree because the whole purpose of that space is for you to feel comfortable.
Yeah. I think all echo chambers are bad ideas because all it's doing is reaffirming you in your own fucking belief. And also two, it also means you're not getting any new information and you're not hearing anything else. That's bad in my opinion.
I do think that,
and I think that's what creates some of the prejudices and biases that we were talking about before.
I do understand why people would want to block people who voted for Trump. However, I would just say keep them on your friends list and just troll them.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
No, like I understand your friends list
Make
on
fun of them.
social media is yours to cultivate whatever way you want. It's just I think cutting out opinions you don't agree with is bad. I think that not hearing the real opinion and just hearing the plastered generality response that some people have, I think that's a bad thing. And I think that, unfortunately, is what the For You pages have created in a negative way towards people or on people.
Which is why people maybe feel so emboldened to say all the things that I started
Yes.
out this whole conversation talking
Yes.
about. because they see a bunch of other men saying all this misogynist or sexist shit, or they see all these other people shitting on men, so it's easy to jump on the bandwagon, or they see all these people saying all this like stupid transphobic shit, and so it's easy to just jump on that as well.
Well, a lot of that stuff validates some of the feelings that people have, whether they voice the opinion or not. They have some of these
even if their
prejudicial
opinion
feelings.
is fucking brain dead.
Yep,
You
that's
know,
fine.
apparently brain dead's offensive. I don't care. I'm gonna call people brain dead anyway. So
Are you making fun of people in comas? What is wrong with you?
when people say stuff that is so dumb that I don't even have a way to respond to it, I just say it's brain dead.
Yeah.
Like, because your point, you haven't even like taken two steps, like two logical steps forward to think more about what you said. You're saying something, and if you took 2 seconds to think about it, you realize it's fucking stupid.
So, I just thought of this as you said that. When people get aggravated for the hate that they see online and they talk about how they got into it with somebody, you chose to get into it with them. You could have left their ignorant ass statement exactly where it was. You didn't have to respond to them. You chose to engage with that person. You need to deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah, and then
Which
at
is
some
you
point,
being
if I don't
pissy.
feel like engaging with them anymore, I just turn off notifications from that particular post because I don't feel like arguing with them anymore.
I just don't engage to begin with.
Yeah, I try not to, but then every once in a while,
If somebody is commenting on the look of some female online, no matter what I say to them, it ain't gonna matter. Like, they don't give a fuck. In the fucking protection of the keyboard. Like, honest to God, like, those are the things that I think people need to do more, is get away from their fucking keyboard and have to say some of this shit verbally, out loud, in front of people. Like, that's much harder for everybody to do.
would you make these perverted comments if you saw this
Yes.
person in real life?
No. Would you say it with your mama next to you? Like, here's some shit about like sexist comments, okay, that people say online, okay? Whether you're a guy or a girl saying this shit, sexist shit people say online, okay? Would you say it with your mama next to you? And would you say it with your daughter next to you? Would you say it with your wife next to you? And if
How would you feel if someone said it to your daughter?
Then you're a sexist piece of shit.
How would you feel if someone said the same thing to your daughter?
Or your mom or your wife? And that's the thing. Like, some of these people say this shit because outside of their family environment, outside of the women in their life they supposedly respect, okay, they're going to say this shit because they feel protected behind that goddamn keyboard.
It's also,
Now,
there's no investment because they don't know the person.
Right.
There's no emotional investment.
The women who say fucked up shit about men, what about your dad? What about your husband? What about your son? Like, everybody is related to somebody. Like, insulting a woman's body, or insulting her body count, or like making fun of her somehow, or calling her stupid, that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's wife.
I also
that's
say, like,
mother.
why are
that's
you so
somebody's,
emotionally
like,
invested in
fuck.
someone else's relationships?
Yeah,
It's like when the people were making fun of the guy who was dating a trans woman, and it's like, who cares?
like, that's
Who the fuck
between the two of them.
cares?
That's between them.
Why do you care
that's
so
it.
much?
Yeah.
There was another one about this guy who married a porn star, and people were saying a bunch of sexist and shitty stuff in the comments. Same thing. Why do you care?
Yeah, like,
Why do you care?
That's between them.
Who cares?
Well, this keyboard, Steve. That's why they care, because they're protected.
I
by the
wouldn't date a
goddamn
porn
keyboard.
star. She's been ran through.
And
okay,
nobody
cool.
asked you.
Who cares?
Nobody asked you.
Nobody cares.
Fuck.
Nobody
Well,
cares.
obviously he does. So don't say nobody cares, because that guy fucking cares.
But why would you care? It's somebody else. It's not, you're not involved in the
Yeah.
relationship.
It's not actually that he cares. It's because he wants to say some shit, because everybody feels emboldened to say whatever the fuck they think.
Yeah.
Like, this coming from somebody who's a self-prescribed asshole. Anyway,
we do need to wrap things up.
So like, follow, subscribe, tell a buddy, tell a friend, tell anybody possible. Tell them to listen to our podcast. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, if you agree or disagree with anything me and Steve have said on today's show, please let us know.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, tell us why we're wrong.
I'm sure there's
Or
things I haven't thought
something.
of. I do try to take things into account. It does take me a few days sometimes to absorb what people said, but
Yeah, and we promise you, this is not the last time we're going to have this conversation.
all right,
Anyway.
bye. Pee pee poo poo.
Bye.